Have you ever had that moment where you're just standing in line, completely zoned out, and you hear that little beep? You know the one. You've just tapped your phone or your card against the terminal. A little green check mark pops up. Maybe a satisfying little chime plays. And you grab your coffee or your bag of groceries and walk out. You didn't even look at the total. You didn't even really think about the fact that you just exchanged your hard earned labor for a physical item. It felt like absolutely nothing happened. And then maybe a few days later, you're sitting on your couch, staring at your banking app, scrolling through a list of transactions, and you have this sinking, hollow feeling in your chest. You're looking at 20 different charges from coffee shops, pharmacies, random online stores, and you're thinking, wait, where did all my money go? Did I actually spend that? It feels like phantom money, like it just evaporated into the ether. I'm Karen, and honestly, I think about money more than is probably healthy. I've spent years just endlessly fascinated by how we interact with our finances, why we make the choices we do, and why it all feels so incredibly disconnected from reality sometimes. Because the truth is, the way we spend money today isn't just convenient, it's literally designed to bypass the part of our brain that feels the pain of loss. We live in a world of frictionless spending, and while that sounds like a great feature, like a totally optimized, futuristic way to live, it's actually doing something really weird to our brains. It's messing with our dopamine, it's altering our perception of value, and it's keeping us trapped in a cycle of mindless consumption. But what if you could just pause it? What if you could hit a hard reset on your brain's reward system and fundamentally change how you experience the act of buying things? That's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to dive deep into the 30-day cash diet, not as a punishment, not as some restrictive, miserable financial prison sentence, but as a psychological detox, a way to wake your brain back up and take back control from the systems that want you to just keep blindly tapping your screen. So let's just start by looking at the trap we're all currently caught in. I call it the frictionless trap. Think about how spending used to work, even just 20 or 30 years ago. If you wanted to buy something, you had to physically go to a bank or an ATM, you had to withdraw physical bills, you had to fold them up, put them in a piece of leather, put that leather in your pocket, and carry it around. When you went to a store, you had to take out that physical representation of your labor, you had to count it, you had to hand it to another human being, you had to watch them put it in a drawer, and then you had to wait while they handed you back whatever was left over. There was a beginning, a middle, and an end to the transaction. It took time. It took physical movement. It took, in psychological terms, friction. Basically, friction is just any obstacle or delay between you and the thing you want. In the tech world, friction is the enemy. App developers and banks spend billions, literally billions of dollars, trying to eliminate every single microscopic ounce of friction from the purchasing process. They want it to be seamless. They want one-click buying. They want facial recognition payments. They want you to not even have to pull your phone out of your pocket. But here's the thing about friction. Human beings actually need it. Our brains evolved to rely on friction to make good decisions. In behavioral economics, there's a concept called the pain of paying. It's exactly what it sounds like. When you part with your resources, your brain actually registers it in a very similar way to physical pain. A little alarm bell goes off. Your brain says, hey, wait a minute, we are losing something valuable here. Are we sure this trade is worth it? That pain is a protective mechanism. It's what stops you from trading all your winter food for a handful of pretty rocks. But credit cards, digital wallets, and Apple Pay, they are basically anesthetics for that pain. When you tap a piece of plastic or double-click the side of your iPhone, you aren't losing anything physical. The card goes right back into your wallet. The phone goes right back into your pocket. Visually and tactilely, you are exactly as wealthy as you were 3 seconds ago. There is no sensory feedback that you have lost anything. The only thing that changes is a digital number on a server thousands of miles away, which you probably won't even look at until the end of the month. And because there is no pain, the only thing your brain registers is the reward. You get the coffee, you get the new shoes, you get the dopamine hit of acquiring a new item, completely divorced from the sting of losing the money. It is a biological cheat code, and corporations are using it to hack your reward system.
It reminds me of how casinos operate. If you've ever walked into a casino, you know the first thing they make you do if you want to play the table games is exchange your cash for little clay chips. Why? Because a blue piece of clay doesn't feel like $100. If you were betting actual physical $100 bills on a blackjack table, watching the dealer sweep away your rent money, you would probably get sick to your stomach and walk away. But throwing a few blue chips onto the felt, it feels like a game. It feels like Monopoly money. Your credit card is just a casino chip that works at Target. And that brings us to the actual intervention, the circuit breaker, the 30-day cash diet. Now, when I say cash diet, people immediately get defensive. The word diet implies restriction, misery, eating boiled chicken, and never having fun again. But I want you to completely reframe how you think about this. The cash diet is not about restriction. It is not about never spending money. It is an experiment in awareness. It's a sensory recalibration. The premise is unbelievably simple, but executing it is profoundly disruptive. For 30 days, you lock your credit cards away. You delete your saved cards from your browser. You remove Apple Pay or Google Pay from your phone. And for all of your variable day-to-day spending, groceries, gas, coffee, eating out, entertainment, random Amazon purchases, you only use physical paper cash. Obviously, you keep paying your fixed bills like rent, internet, and insurance online. We're not trying to get evicted here. We're targeting the discretionary spending, the leaks in the boat. You sit down at the beginning of the month or the beginning of the week, you look at your budget and you say, okay, I have $400 for groceries, $150 for dining out, and $100 for fun this week. And then you go to the ATM and you pull out exactly $650. You put it in envelopes or just in your wallet, and that is it. That is your universe of resources. When the paper is gone, the spending stops. No borrowing from next week. No, I'll just put this one thing on the card. A hard physical boundary. Sounds easy enough, right? Just use cash. People did it for centuries. How hard could it be? Honestly, the first week is going to feel like absolute chaos. Let me walk you through what actually happens in week 1, because this is where the psychology gets incredibly raw. The first thing you experience is the withdrawal. And I mean that almost in a clinical sense. You see, your brain has been wired for instant gratification. See item, tap phone, get item, dopamine spike. It's a beautifully efficient loop. When you introduce cash back into the equation, you are throwing a massive wrench into that machinery. Let's imagine you're at the grocery store on day 3. You've got your cart full of stuff. You've tossed in a few extra things, that fancy organic salsa, a magazine, a beautifully packaged block of cheese that costs $14 for some reason. You get to the checkout line. The cashier rings it all up. That'll be $142.50, they say. Normally, you wouldn't even blink. You just hover your wrist over the machine and walk away. But today, you have to reach into your pocket. You pull out a wad of cash, and suddenly your brain completely misfires. You have to actually count it. 20, 40, 60, 80, 100, 20, 40. You are holding all these bills, and as you peel them off and hand them over, your brain screams, "Wait, what are you doing? We need that. That is ours." You literally feel a spike of cortisol, a stress hormone. And then there's the social pressure. Oh, the social pressure is real. While you're standing there, fumbling with paper money and waiting for the cashier to count out $7.50 in change, you can feel the heavy, judgmental sighs of the people in line behind you. You feel like a time traveler from 1994. You feel inefficient. You feel awkward. But that awkwardness, that friction, that is exactly the medicine working. In that moment of counting the bills, you are forced to look at the $14 block of cheese and evaluate it against the physical paper leaving your hand. Is it worth it? The illusion breaks. The anesthesia wears off. You feel the pain of paying. During week 1, you will likely find yourself constantly anxious about whether you have enough money on you. You'll avoid popping into a store just to browse because you know the hassle of paying with cash is annoying. You might even experience moments of genuine anger or frustration at the inconvenience of it all. This is your brain's automated systems rebelling against manual control. It wants the easy dopamine back. It's going to tell you this experiment is stupid, that it's outdated, that you're wasting your time. But if you can push through that initial friction, something really beautiful starts to happen in week 2. I call it the shift in perception. By the second week, the initial shock of handling physical currency starts to wear off, and a deeper, quieter realization sets in. You start to see money not as an abstract, infinite number on a screen, but as a finite, tangible resource. Think about a visual progress bar. When you swipe a card, your bank account balance goes down, sure, but unless you log in and look at it, you don't see the depletion. Your wallet looks exactly the same on the 1st of the month as it does on the 30th. But with cash, the depletion is physical. It's right there in your face every time you open your purse or your pocket. Let's say you allocate $100 for your weekend fun. On Friday night, your wallet is thick. It feels good. It feels like a possibility. You go out, buy some drinks, maybe get an Uber. On Saturday morning, you look in your wallet and it's significantly thinner. There's maybe $35 left. You don't need a spreadsheet to tell you you're running low. You don't need an app to send you a push notification. The physical reality of the thin wallet communicates directly to your brain. Resources are scarce. Adjust behavior immediately. This is where the magic happens. You start naturally, almost subconsciously, prioritizing. Because the money is physical, it demands respect. You might be walking past a coffee shop on a Tuesday afternoon. Normally, you just wander in, tap for a $7 iced latte, and forget about it entirely. But on week 2 of the cash diet, you put your hand in your pocket. You feel a single $20 bill. You know that 20 has to last you until Thursday for lunch. Suddenly, your brain initiates a completely different dialogue. It says, okay, I want the latte, but if I give them $7 or 20, I only have 13 left. Is this latte worth giving up a decent lunch tomorrow? You aren't just deciding if you want the coffee, you are weighing opportunity costs in real time. You are making conscious, deliberate choices. And a lot of the time, you'll find yourself saying, you know what, I'm actually not that thirsty. I'll just wait until I get home. You walk past the coffee shop, and here is the craziest part. You actually get a tiny little hit of dopamine from not spending the money. Let me explain that because it's a massive turning point. Our brains love to accumulate. For most of our modern lives, we get our little chemical rewards from acquiring things, stuff, clothes, gadgets, coffees. But during a cash diet, as your brain recalibrates to the reality of finite resources, the reward system begins to pivot. You start getting a sense of satisfaction, a feeling of security and control from holding on to the physical bills. Keeping the money becomes the reward. You look at your envelope at the end of the week, see a $20 bill still sitting in there, and you feel genuinely proud of yourself. You defeated the frictionless system. You kept your labor.
This brings us to week 3, rewiring the reward circuit. By the 3rd week, the cash diet stops feeling like a diet and starts feeling like a completely different operating system for your life. The heavy friction that annoyed you so much in week 1 has become a comfortable rhythm. This is the week where you really start to notice how much of your previous spending was entirely emotionally driven. When money is invisible, it's the perfect tool to self-medicate. Had a bad day at work? Tap for takeout. Feeling bored on a Sunday? Tap for an Amazon purchase. Feeling insecure? Tap for new clothes. The frictionless spending loop was serving as a pacifier for every minor emotional fluctuation in your life. But when you have to physically hand over cash, the transaction takes just long enough for your rational brain to catch up with your emotional brain. Let me give you a personal example from when I first really examined this in my own life. I used to be a chronic Target wanderer. You know the drill. You go in because you legitimately need like aluminum foil and some toothpaste, and somehow you fall into a fugue state in the home decor aisle. Next thing you know, you have a cart full of throw pillows, a fake plant, some seasonal hand towels, and 3 bags of weirdly flavored popcorn. When I had my card, I would get to the register, see the total, maybe it was $115, and I'd feel a tiny twinge of guilt, but I'd just tap the card and push the feeling down. I'd justify it later. Oh, the house needed a refresh anyway. During my first real cash reset, I went to Target. I had exactly $40 in my wallet, which I had budgeted for household essentials. I did the exact same wandering routine. I put the pillows in the cart, I put the fake plant in the cart, but as I was walking toward the front of the store, a physical anxiety set in. I knew as an absolute, undeniable fact that I did not have enough paper in my pocket to pay for this cart. I couldn't just figure it out later or float it. The reality was rigid. I actually had to stop in an empty aisle, look at the items in my cart, and start doing math. Toothpaste, $4. Foil, $5. Okay, I have $31 left. This pillow is $25. If I buy the pillow, I only have $6 left. I ended up putting the pillow and the plant back on the shelf. And you know what? It wasn't a tragedy. I didn't feel deprived. Walking out of that store with just the things I actually needed and still having a $20 bill in my pocket felt incredibly empowering. It felt like I had woken up from a spell. Week 3 is about breaking the automated responses. You realize that you don't actually need 80% of the things you used to buy impulsively. You were just buying them because the barrier to entry was practically zero and your brain was chasing a chemical high. By raising the barrier, by adding the friction of physical cash, you force yourself to evaluate the true desire for the object. And more often than not, the desire isn't actually that strong. It was just a fleeting impulse. This is also the week where you start to notice the sheer volume of marketing that constantly surrounds you. Because your defenses are up and because you are highly conscious of your limited physical resources, you start seeing the tricks everywhere. You notice how stores are laid out to confuse you. You notice the upsells. You notice the subtle ways digital checkouts try to trick you into adding just one more item for free shipping. When you are living on physical cash, you become immune to a lot of this digital trickery. An online store telling you only 2 items left in stock doesn't trigger a panic buy response because buying it online requires breaking the rules of your cash diet or at the very least taking extra complicated steps to transfer funds. The friction saves you from the manipulation. Finally, we arrive at week 4, the clarity and the aftermath. The final week of the 30-day challenge is usually the most peaceful. The anxiety of carrying cash is gone. You've mastered the art of rounding up in your head while walking down the grocery aisle. You know exactly what's in your wallet at any given moment. You feel a profound sense of grounding. You have effectively detoxed your brain's reward system. The dopamine hit is no longer tied to the mindless act of swiping plastic. It's tied to the intentional act of resource management. But when the 30 days are over, do you just live like a 19th century fur trapper forever, carrying around sacks of coins and refusing to use the internet? No, of course not. The goal of the 30-day cash diet isn't to swear off modern banking for the rest of your life. Credit cards offer incredible protections, rewards points, and conveniences that are genuinely useful when managed correctly. Digital payments are great for splitting bills with friends or paying for parking meters. We don't need to reject the modern world. The goal was the reset. When day 31 rolls around and you put your credit card back in your wallet, something fundamental will have shifted. You will look at that piece of plastic differently. It won't look like a magic wand anymore. It will look like a tool, and you will be hyper aware of the danger it represents. You'll find that the lessons of the cash diet linger. When you go to tap your card for that $7 coffee, your brain will automatically simulate the friction of cash. You will remember the feeling of handing over the physical bills, and you will pause. That tiny half-second gap between impulse and action is everything. That pause is where your financial future is decided. You might even decide to keep using cash for certain categories. A lot of people find that keeping their grocery budget or their fun money in physical cash permanently is the only way to keep those specific categories from spiraling out of control while using cards for everything else. You get to build a hybrid system that actually works for your unique psychology. The biggest takeaway from the 30 days isn't just that you saved some money, though you probably will save a surprising amount.
The biggest takeaway is that you prove to yourself that you are in control. You are not at the mercy of algorithms, seamless checkouts, and casino chip psychology. You have the ability to step out of the frictionless river, stand on the bank, and say, no, I am choosing exactly where my resources go. I want to be completely honest with you. Doing this isn't easy. It requires swallowing your pride when you're counting quarters at the gas station. It requires facing the uncomfortable reality of your own impulsive behaviors. It requires giving up the momentary, fleeting high of blind consumption. But the peace of mind that comes from living deliberately, from actually aligning your spending with your physical reality, is worth infinitely more than any momentary dopamine spike you get from tapping a screen. So I want to challenge you. Look at your calendar. Pick a date to start. It doesn't have to be the first of the month. It can be next Tuesday. Go to the ATM, pull out your variable spending for the week, take your cards out of your physical wallet and delete them from your digital one. Just commit to 30 days of friction, 30 days of feeling the pain of paying, 30 days of physical reality. Your brain is going to fight you, your habits are going to scream at you, and the modern world is going to tell you you're being ridiculous. Let them. Because on the other side of that friction is a level of clarity and control that most people never get to experience. You spend your whole life working for your money. Don't you think you deserve to actually feel it when you spend it?